Good evening and welcome to Pop Culture. This is the 17th episode and I'm super excited about it. 17, we are 17 and out here today. And our guest today has two projects that are live on IndieGoGo. It's X-Farce Reloaded and BREADZZERKER. But more importantly, this man brought us Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters, the original parody to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. My guest today, the one and only Don Chen. How are you, sir?
Hey man, I'm good. 24 Eyes. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
Awesome.
I'm super stoked because right before Don hit me up a little while ago in the DMs and Twitter and said I got a special owl deal just for X-Farce, so if you can go check it out. So on IndieGoGo in the description of this very podcast and go down there and check it out and get a promo offer on X-Farce. I hit it up $19 for the first X-Farce Reloaded #1. And
Yeah,
I appreciate it,
that's
Don.
you're welcome. That's with shipping too. So before we had it for 25 bucks plus $10 shipping. So you're basically getting it for about
Cost.
14. Yeah, pretty close to cost, and we'll put it in a nice Gemini mailer. I'll sign it if you want. But
I
I think
mean,
you'll enjoy it.
that's the crazy thing. Don signs them for free, so I don't know why you wouldn't take the signature. I'm probably gonna get two because one of the things that really been thinking about is getting some really primo copies of the books that I really appreciate and getting them put in CGC'd just so that
Oh
you can
yeah,
preserve like a perfect 10 copy of something. I mean, you never know what could happen with it, but just for your own appreciation, just a sealed copy
definitely.
to have on the wall and just perfectly
Yeah,
graded.
I've seen some old Parody Press stuff. CGC slabbed, and they go up quite a bit. We did a parody of the Max back in the 90s, and that book sells for like 400 bucks graded. It was like a $3 book, and now it's like $400.
So where did your affection, like your affinity for like parody come from?
I kind of grew up reading Mad magazine, 24 Eyes, and back in the day, you could go into the grocery store and Mad magazine would be there on the newsstand, and then Cracked was another satire magazine, and I grew up kind of reading those for my warped sense of humor, and I watched a lot of like the original Saturday Night Live, like John Belushi and
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray. Those were big influences. The airplane movies that came out, uh,
Oh, I love those. I love those and Naked Gun.
yeah, Naked Gun. I think the guys' names were like the Zucker brothers, and I don't think they're doing anything anymore. But those movies were hilarious, like Hot Shots and Top Secret with Val Kilmer.
I really
Um,
wonder if they have like a couple of scripts like stowed away, like some like hidden scripts that just haven't been like done or greenlighted or whatever, and they'd probably
yeah,
like kill today because when's the last time like nobody really does parody movies since they like kind of wore them out with not a scary
scary
another
movie.
scary movie. Yeah, after
Yeah,
that franchise kind of burned it out.
yeah. I wish those guys would come back or somebody do something like that. But um, maybe they're afraid they'd get, it's not politically correct, so they
But that's
might
the
just
that I think that was like the point, like National Lampoon's. That was
exactly.
like the point of not being correct. Like it's so killer. Like I don't know this when culture got censorship. Like censorship used to be like everyone used to be anti-censorship, like, and on the very and it was like fun to be able to make fun of things and have parodies and just
Yeah,
enjoy life just on a pure practical level, just a fun way.
yeah. If I was to do the hamsters like I did in the 80s, I think I'd get some people probably coming down on me because there was a lot of humor in that was pretty irreverent. Um, so, anyways, so yeah, that's kind of my introduction to satire was mainly through Mad and Cracked, and then Cracked was actually the very first thing I ever got paid to write in, like back in the early 80s. And then that led to the Hamsters, which was like in 1986.
I was born in 1984, so
Oh man,
yeah. So mm.
I'm an old fart, like
No,
Pops.
well, like
Pops is
pasta.
in the chat. We're like the same. We're the same age.
Well, my last two girlfriends were born in 1980. If that's any better, at least they
Oh,
were
you
old
like the
enough. Like,
older women?
just I mean, that's where I've landed.
Well, that's cool, man. So I was making comics like probably before you were born, because I started like when I was in high school.
What motivated you make like to make comics? And were they parodies to begin with, or were they like did you have your own storylines and idea? Like, is there anything
Um,
that you've carried, or do you still have like in the back of your head that you might want to do? None.
well, I kind of grew up reading comic strips first, like in the newspaper, because every day my dad would get the daily newspaper. So before comics kind of came into my mind, there were the daily strips, and then the huge jackpot was on Sunday when you get the Sunday paper, and it'd be full color section of funny. So I kind of grew up on Peanuts, BC, and then eventually I like strips kind of like The Far Side and Bloom County, things like that. So I actually kind of have this alter ego that people don't know about. I published a lot of comic strip magazines back in the 80s, alongside
Oh wow.
doing the Hamster. So I did these collections of comic book strips called Comics Review, and another one was called Comics Express. You could probably still find them online, but Comics Review is actually still running. It's more of an adventure strip collection, but I think
Okay.
it's the longest running kind of a comic strip reprint magazine, because I started that back in like 1983, and now it's 2021.
You
And
did claymation covers back in the day?
yeah, Hamster's number 3. If you Google that, you'll see a Parsonovich, my artist. He was pretty decent
Please
sculptor.
tell me
So
that you
he
have like at least a handful copies of all these books that you did. Please tell me that you
just
kept
a
them.
handful, man. I'm just like I
But
have
at least one of each, like at least one of it. Like just there's things that kill me is when I hear an artist like made all this work and did all these things, and then they're like I have like a quarter of it. I'm like
My wife says
no.
I have too many. I still have too many.
Mm,
But yeah, I try to keep like 2 or 3 at least. The ones that people seem to really clamor for are not just number 1, but Sam Keith was a guy that worked with me on Hamsters, like in the later part of the series. So his very first work of him penciling and inking is like in Hamsters number 6.
okay.
And so Sam Keith and I did like 3 or 4 issues of Hamsters, and there are a lot of big Sam Keith fans because of the Max and Sandman and Batman. So people that are deep diving into Sam Keith try to find those older Hamster issues. So those ones are
Oh,
kind of hard. Those ones are a little harder to find.
that. Do you have? Did you ever have? Because I like Weird Al had like different beefs in the music industry because of his parodies. Did you ever have any beefs in the comic book or comic strip industry because you did a parody of their stuff? Like, did anybody like take offense to it or just like was like, what the?
We always tried to spoof stuff that we liked, or at least that we thought could make us some money, kind of
Mm-hmm.
ride on their coattails. So besides the Turtles in the 90s, my partners and I, we went in and doing a lot of Image comic spoofs. So we would spoof Spawn, anything that Rob Liefeld did. And, to be honest, no one ever sued us or, said
No,
cease
no,
and
he had
desist.
bad blood. I was just bad blood, just like what did just because there's like weird stuff in the music industry where you hear that where like weird. I was like, I just made a song and they said it was good, and then you hear like another side of the story, it's like no, it was terrible. We
Yeah,
told
like
him
the
no.
Gangsta's Paradise. I think
Yeah,
The Amish Paradise. I don't think the guy that did originally the Gangsta's
Coolio.
Paradise, Kool-Aid didn't like Weird Al. But I don't know if you knew this, 24 Eyes, but Weird Al did a song called "Attack of the Radioactive Hamsters from a Planet Near Mars," and I think it was because he knew of the hamsters. If you if you go on YouTube and you do a search of Weird Al
Yeah.
hamsters, you can hear this 80s song that he did.
I was just, you know, what's crazy is I just hooked up my little cable box because I don't watch TV, and I just hooked it up to one of my computer monitors, and on the Peacock is the original Weird Al show that he did that was like a kid's show.
Oh, cool. I
And
would love that.
I've been watching episodes. Like the way he teaches lessons is hilarious. The first one was like about, you know, like trying to fit in too much, and he's like dipping his arms in chocolate. The way Weird Al does stuff is great.
I didn't even know he had a TV show. I knew he did a couple of movies like UHF, but I
UHF
did.
was cool. I saw that like growing up back when there was still UHF TV in
I
existence.
loved Weird Al. Yeah, I used to listen to him before MTV. He was on Dr. Demento. My local radio station would play Dr. Demento.
Okay. How old were you when you caught Dr. Demento
Gosh,
for the
man.
first time?
I was so big. I was big into listening to FM. So I would probably have to say late 70s, early 80s. That's kind of when I was in high school. And
Yeah.
so I fish heads, and another one rides the bus. Those were awesome. Did you like Dr. Demento?
I did. I did. Well, Dr. Demento is one of those ones I had to like go back into like the archives and kind of found on the secondary. I found him because like in my generation, Weird Al was mainstream. Like he did make it to MTV, and like there was a little section right there after it was born, like in the '90s to the early 2000s, where it was pretty paramount in the culture, and so like he was on all those shows.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leads you down to the rabbit hole, like, well, what else exists? I mean, other than like catching the show, like I did catch UHF as a kid a couple of times, and I remember seeing Weird Al VHS tapes in
At the
in the
video
movie
store?
store, you know, at the
Yeah.
VHS store, like not even Blockbuster,
Block, but yeah.
like the local VHS store, you know, like the hometown one. So I remember seeing tapes and stuff, and so that kind of like sparked it when I got older and hit up. It sparked it me, finding Dr. Demento, and then finding like all of that great stuff, all those songs and parodies and things that were going on there.
Did you did you ever used to watch Lost in Space? The Danger Will Robinson?
Yeah, I've caught a
Yeah.
couple of episodes.
Did you know that Billy Mummy, the guy that played the little Will Robinson, he was part of the two guys that made up Barnes and Barnes that did the Fish Head song?
No, I
Uh,
didn't know that.
yeah, so that's a weird thing of pop culture there for you to cross reference.
What like how did you get your start in doing anything? Did you submit stuff? Were you like did you see like something in a newspaper article? Did you, I mean, like
Oh,
what
that's a
sparked
good
it?
question,
Like
man.
how did you get there?
That's a good question. So, I don't know if they had Heavy Metal magazine when you were growing up, but
Yes,
that was
I love it.
okay. That was kind of my gateway from Marvel and DC, because it had boobs in it. So my friends and I would kind of get this Heavy Metal because it was it was just like this eye candy, and you had guys like Richard Corbin and Mobius and Von Baudet and all these really cool European artists that we weren't really familiar with. So that kind of led me down the rabbit hole to get into underground and indie books. And so I started going to these head shops, and I would pick up. Head shop is basically for you younger people, it's like a pot store.
A pawn shop.
Right.
It is
And
facilitates all your needs.
right. So I wouldn't go in there to buy the paraphernalia. I would go in there to look at the comic books because they were usually a little bit, a little bit R-rated or even X-rated. And so I got into reading like Fat Freddy's Cat and the Furry Freak Brothers and stuff like that. But my friends and I wanted to be in heavy metal, so we would send our stuff in, and we would try Marvel and DC as well. but we were in high school and we always thought our stuff was really good, but we were nowhere near, professional quality back in the 80s. So we just decided to publish our own stuff because nobody else was
So you
doing
just
it.
went punk rock. You're just like
We just went
self-published.
punk rock, man. And I went to my parents and said, "Hey, will you help me fund, a fanzine?" And so we came up with this kind of a underground fantasy
Where
humor magazine.
where is this happening at? Where is this taking place at?
This is Northern California, where I still reside,
So
way up
you're born
north.
and raised and still living it. I feel sorry. I'm sorry, sir. There's a lot of craziness going on in California.
There is, man.
The
It's
taxes are
tempting.
upside down. Everything is like whatnot.
That's a good question. Devil Flyer. That's correct. Kevin Eastman did. I think he did buy heavy metal, but I don't think he owns it anymore. Um, but his wife, Julie Strain, ex-wife, used to be like on the covers of that. She's like a
Mm.
6 foot tall Amazon.
Mm.
So,
Oh,
anyways,
so
we just
she's
started
like the.
publishing.
You just started publishing. So did you like? Well, okay. So in the '90s, I guess there would have been like Kinkos. Like, did you like what was that like?
Oh,
Did you have to find like a public like a printing like place? I mean,
awesome, man. That's a good. Well, I did these kind of like these before we did Overload, which was a saddle stitched, full size. Um, it was like magazine size. It was like the size of heavy metal. I
okay.
used to publish my own mini comics, so I would go into Kinko's and either print double sided. There's a way where you can take a piece of paper and fold it like in half and then
Hmm.
half again, and then you trim off the top and you staple it, so you almost have like a little 8-page mini comic. So I used to kind of do those, and I would send them. There's just a small group of collectors and artists that used to trade their little mini comics. So that was kind of like my Kinko's phase. But Overload was more like I had actually had to find a local printer here up in my neck of the woods. And so we did 5 issues, and they were all published locally, and we would distribute them to different liquor stores. But eventually we got national distribution with the last couple issues. So it was starting to get, you know, distributed all over the United States. That was like 1980, 81.
But okay, so yeah, but what people didn't understand is this is back when there was yellow. There was no Google. There was no internet. There was like this wasn't just like a simple task. Like there was like yellow pages. You could look up some yellow and like maybe you find something. Maybe there was a business. I mean, like there's a lot more work to like to find a printer and then get that pressed and then get it distributed and then get it
Right.
into the eyes of people. How did you get like your product in front of people like where it started like to catch fire?
Um, well, not having that much business savvy when I started 24, I thought, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. So,
Yeah.
my friends and I probably printed like a couple thousand copies of Overload, and it was
Oh,
like $1 or $1.50 or something. And we just thought, oh, once we print this comic book, I'm sure we can send it to distributors, and they're just going to want to order, and we'll just sell these like crazy. But that's not the way it works. The way that it works is that you solicit the book to the distributor, so you send them copies of the work in progress, and you say this book's going to be coming out, and so they basically take the little solicitation blurb that you write along with some promotional artwork, and then they shop it to all the different comic book stores, kind of like what Diamond Comics does
okay.
these days. But back in the day, I didn't know that. I thought, oh, I just print ahead of
And
time.
we'll just sell it. We'll just get it going.
Right. And so I didn't know that until getting my feet wet, that's I was doing it, basically backwards. So now I understand that, but back in the day, you're right. We didn't have the World Wide Web. We would have to use snail mail to promote. You couldn't, you'd have to go to a convention and try to set up a table. And that's where I met a lot of
Conventions
people.
before there were Comic Con, before movies were introduced and video games were introduced, and like this
Yeah.
was like, I mean, what kind of locations did you go to like for original, like your first like couple of comic conventions? Like,
Um, well, my area where I live isn't that big. I mean, we only have like 100,000 people in my whole county. So to get to San Francisco the Bay Area. That's where the big cons were. They were called creation conventions. And if you look back in the old comic books from the 80s, you can see them running ads. And they would have pretty big names. Mainly, sometimes they do Star Trek theme ones. So you'd have like Nimoy and Shatner as guests. But the comic book ones would be more like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Chris Claremont, guys like that. So I would go down in the Bay Area ones when I was just, basically in finishing high school and starting college. We take a van, about 3 or 4 of us guys would take a van loaded with our books, and we would buy a table and we'd just set up a table there and try to sell our comic books. So it was a big job.
Did you develop a good sales pitch over time? Did it come to a point where you knew if you talked to enough people you could sell at least enough books to cover the trip?
I don't really think we broke even. I think it was just fun.
It was just rock and roll.
We would sleep in the van. We were
this
cheap.
Sounds like a complete punk rock endeavor. Like, we toured for several years, and we lost money. We slept on floors.
It's kind of the way it was back, Commando style. But eventually we started to make connections with other pros, and that's how the Hamsters kind of got connected with Eclipse Comics, because I didn't have anything published other than Cracked at the time, and I was running a comic book store back in the 80s as I was going to school in college, and the Turtles came out, and I was just fascinated by it. I said, here's this gritty looking book by a couple of no-name guys, and comic book stores and fans are going nuts over it. I mean, you couldn't keep them in stock. So wow. I got Turtles in, and I said, this is such a bizarre name. I wonder if people would take it a step further. So I was just doodling in my class in college, and I came up with Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters, and I took it to my artist friend who was also in the same town, and I said, hey, do you want to maybe just draw this comic book, and we'll just give it a shot and see if someone would publish it? And he said, yeah. And so I sent it to Eclipse, the people that I met at one of these cons. And Eclipse, I don't know if you are familiar with them, 24 Eyes, but they were kind of a bigger indie publisher back in the 80s.
Okay.
They did a lot of stuff with Alan Moore and who else? Chuck Dixon kind of got started there.
Okay.
But so anyways, it was an indie company, and they said, yeah, let's give it a shot. So they took a chance on Hamsters, and all told, I think between the first and second printing, they sold almost like 80,000 copies of it. So it quickly became one of their best sellers. And I just thought it was just going to be a one shot, but it sold so well that Eclipse said, let's try to make it a regular series. So we did about probably about 20 issues over 3 or 4 years of the Hamsters, like different mini series and stuff. And so that was kind of the shot in the arm that I needed to not just look at comics as a hobby, but I said, wow, I'm making more money writing and publishing comic books than I am running my comic book store. So I left the comic book store, and my wife and I and Bill Mouse, we all started Parody Press like in I think 1992.
Okay.
Because Eclipse went bankrupt, unfortunately. So otherwise I probably would have kept working with Eclipse, but they were having some financial trouble. So we started our own company.
Hamsters was the biggest parody of them all. I think it's pretty. Actually, I dug up the Wikipedia and stuff, and I was looking into it, and I was like, wow. So it said, Eclipse, published in 1986 by Eclipse, later by Parody Press, and then Dynamite Entertainment. Well, how did that transition?
Well, after Parody Press, we kind of closed up shop like in the late 90s because the whole comic book business was kind of going through an upheaval, and people weren't able to really sustain, making an income anymore. So I left in the late 90s to go into real estate. So I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for like 20 plus years. And so in around 2006, 2007, Dynamite approached me. They tracked me down, and I had met Nick, who owns Dynamite, at back in the 90s at conventions and stuff, but I never really did any business with them. But so Nick, I don't know if you knew, with Dynamite, he got started selling books on QVC.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He would go on
That's brilliant.
yeah, he would go on QVC and sell these limited edition signed books like Marvel and DC with variant covers, and he'd probably get somebody to autograph, and he'd probably get, I think on occasion he actually had Stan Lee go on QVC with him. So he kind of made all of his money selling
Yeah.
kind of like television sales, and then
Yeah.
he started to get into his own publishing, which is what Dynamite is now. And now they're kind of like the dark horse of indies. They have all the big licenses. Like, what do they have? Like Zorro and Terminator,
Yeah.
Stargate. So, anyways, he reached out to me because I wasn't doing anything with hamsters, and he said, "Hey, we want to revive the hamsters. Let's do a color book, because hamsters were never in color except for one issue back in the 80s that Sam Keith drew, which was a one shot called Target Airboy." And so they did a 4-issue miniseries of the hamsters, and even though it didn't like take off so that it was going to be a continuing series, he made me an offer. He said, "Do you would you consider letting me buy the rights for the hamsters?" So we made a deal, and Dynamite now is the people that own the rights to the hamsters. So unfortunately, I saw Devil Flyer's post. Unfortunately, because of the rift between comics gators and
Mainstream
the
comic.
regular mainstream, I don't think Nick sees that happening anytime soon. He doesn't want to be associated with anyone that's a comics gator, and that's what happened with the Cyberfrog book. We were going to do a crossover with Cyberfrog, and it was going to be drawn by Kanan White and EJ Morges, and this was like last summer. It kind of took a nosedive. I had already written like a 40-page story. It was already about 20% drawn, and then unfortunately Dynamite and Ethan had a falling out, and that project got scrapped, and so it's on the shelf indefinitely.
Well, yeah, that's terrible. You know what though? This is the thing. Like, I hope that like some comic creators like catch the interview and they pay attention to like the hustle. This is what I think is kind of missing from CG. I think that there's there's a little bit of laziness. A lot of people relying on just circular audiences. Like my show is not, the majority of my fans on my channel are not Comicsgate fans, right? So I'm trying to expose Comicsgate to new and more people and trying to get it out there a little bit more. Um, and I think that like they need to take that hustle, that idea of hustle, and like do some things. I've heard different things banted about. I think that Zaid brothers are doing really good with some of their ideas of like, doing like you said, like punk rock comics, like some little like ash cans in between series, some things. Joe M. Sontag's gonna do an ash can little preview book before hit, for his. And I think that some of these things that like, get the product out there, get it in people's hands, get them feeling it, like get the visceral, like, love affair with it, and then trying to expand it to other places. Like I hear it all the time where they say the Italian and French markets are just as large as the US market for comic sales.
Wow.
Well, okay. Well, how about we try to talk some translators? How about we,
Yeah.
talk to some book agents in France and they're if their mainstay right now, I heard, like there's a lot of Western comics. Well, there's no Wild West in France. That was all inspired by American culture and American iconography. Like, there's no reason that we couldn't get our books, in front of these people.
Right. Yeah, it's a really good idea, 24 Eyes, because I think you're right. The hustle, um, I don't market my books to the comic book stores. I'm not sure if I will or not. I know that some people are using the model where they'll do a crowdfund and do a premium version first to the hardcore fans, and then they'll maybe wait 6 months or whatever, and then they'll do more like a floppy, cheaper version for like the rest of the comic book collectors. I'm not sure, where I'm going with if I'm ever going to reprint X-Farce or BREADZZERKER, but my wife is kind of anti-digital. She doesn't want to release any of our books digital format,
Yeah.
and I can respect that. I sent you a couple PDFs, so you're one of the few that
Thank you.
actually
I appreciate it.
has PDFs of our stuff. But I don't know. I think she just feels like it's too easy to counterfeit books, and
I guess I don't know. I think that for comic book readers, that there is things that there is a visceral feel, and I think that a lot of people are very negative. But here in pop culture, like we don't talk about the negative because there's other people that talk about it better. And I think that there are missing like
that's
no
cool.
like the reality is that there's 100,000 channels that tear apart everything that happens in pop culture that it like makes your soul die a little bit. But they
Right.
break it down in a way that entertains you. That's not what I want to do. I want to promote things that make me happy, remind people of things that still exist that can make you happy, and
I like
so
that, man.
that's the general feeling that we're trying to flow here. And
I like that positivity. I'm not a big fan of drama and stirring up the pot. I just want to make people laugh.
well, I think that there's a missing opportunity. People say that the American comic book market is dead, and I say no, sir. I say that you're not going to where people read. The thing is that when people say like things like in Europe they read more magazines, or in Japan they read more magazines because of their commuter lifestyle, they're not considering where people would read magazines in America. Where would you read magazines in America? Doctors' offices, hospitals, and like
Oh,
airports.
yeah.
Airports have revolving bookstores where you can, trade in books and sell. You know what I mean? Like if you're a regular traveler, you can go through the bookstore and get discounts by, repurchasing and selling about book, trading in books and stuff. And these are missed opportunities. These are places to travel, and I think that especially, for my family, my father was burned at 16 years old in a car accident. Right, over
Mm,
85% of his body, third-degree burns.
wow.
6 years in a hospital. I would love to see these books get in the hands of these people, like
Yeah.
give them some relief, some pleasure, something to lighten up their day. And I think that's a missed opportunity. I think, we got St. Jude's. I would like to see, these books. There's a lot of creators that talk about like once they don't sell, if I don't sell, so many books, this is special for my whatever. I'm burning the rest. I'm like, maybe we
That's
should
cool
donate.
that you mentioned that, man. I
Maybe we
actually
should
did
donate some, to that kind of thing.
yeah, I remember barbershops. There used to be when I was waiting for to get my haircut, there would be comic books there. But it's funny you mentioned that because I just did an interview with Scott McCullough, who does this book called Door Kickers, and he said he got introduced to comics when I think he was in a hospital stay. Like some of his friends brought him comic books just to pass the time after like surgery, and he was hooked after that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, veterans too. One of the big things, Neff, that does the Mavericks project, he is in a program where as people back to his project, there was a certain certain levels that then they would send books to a charity group that sends them to first responders and active duty military
I saw
overseas and
that,
stuff.
man. I love Neff. I supported that, and I think Pete Sametti might also donate to like some
I
organizations
like
too.
Pete's model. You know what, Pete? I fell in love with Pete. I bought Pete like once I actually, I came late to Comicsgate, but once I found Pete, I got on his website and I went to town. I was like, this is what I want to see. I want to see the product get distributed. Comicsgate was a very small thing in the beginning, and then it had to like lean very heavily on the big top creators. But now we have a lot of middle ground creators who have created several projects that prove themselves. We have, they have exposure and they have platforms to platform other creators. Now we have enough material building that we can start to, distribute things in floppies to get it out to the larger public so that we can really grow it because, you know, the problem with Comic Gate is it's on Twitter. Twitter is used by 13% of America.
Yeah,
So 13% of 350 million people is a great reduction in your market of like what you're trying to share. And then YouTube is also a platform that is not necessarily as popular as it was like 10 years ago. And so it needs to spread out. There needs to be ways of like distribution. And one thing, because Devil Flyer said some things about Ethan. One thing that I'm excited about with Ethan is that he had the opportunity to talk to to that conservative outlet. I'm blanking on the name right now, but he got the opportunity to talk to more media, and I think that's the thing. We need more press. People need to see that it exists. More eyes, more opportunity.
Right.
Let
Yeah,
people connect with the product.
I like the way that you think outside the box, and you're right. Twitter is kind of limited, and it's they seem like they're kind of
Look, I'm just
a
gonna say
little.
Kevin Smith is a partial owner of Twitter, and look what he did to He-Man. Look what he did to He-Man.
True, man. Yeah, Alterna is awesome. I love their books. They got a great price point, a lot of value for the buck.
Well, speaking of books, I think that we should share one of your books, BREADZZERKER. Let's see. Let's hit the share button here. Screen.
Yeah, Pops loves BREADZZERKER.
And BREADZZERKER. Reload. Boom. There we go. And I think that we should play the
trailer
real quick.
Awesome.
Comics are totally awesome. And I'm totally awesome too. BREADZZERKER has everything you want from a comic book. It's got great drawings, colors, great story. It's got great action, has a little romance, and it's about something. Not just any something. It's a parody of some thing. And I was like, well, I used to collect and I love comic books. And they were like, so, did you ever want to make a comic book? And I was like, yeah. And then Parody Press was like, oh, yeah. So they made a comic book that's a parody of my comic book. And it will probably be pretty hilarious, because that's what a parody is. Or at least what it's supposed to be. You know, this idea of kind of like a rock and roll warrior, someone in an altered state, someone with a big guitar axe, and a pet cat that's from the hood, just out of control. Speaking of out of control, there's his beard. It gets bigger and longer throughout the book until it takes on a fantastical life of its own. It's like, whoa! So check it out. If you do, I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. But honestly, I didn't really do that much, other than rambling on about comics and books. I mean, comic books. Wait, what was I saying? Oh well. Enjoy! BREADZZERKER from Parody Press. Back it today!
That's awesome.
Thanks,
That's
bro.
awesome. Oh man, I love that. That's a
Thank
cool.
you.
Like because a lot of people don't put time into their trailers. It's pretty dope. Have you had the chance in California? I mean, I would love for Keanu Reeves to actually get a chance to see this because I feel like he's a good spirited person.
I think you're right, man. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because we just sent a package of all the different variant covers to Boom Studios about a week and a half ago. I haven't got sued yet, so that's
I've got
good.
sued.
I did I did sign one to Keanu, um, and I tried to give them enough copies that the whole creative team
So that
could
was
have one.
actually that's one of my this is one of my complaints to campaign, sir. There are 7 variant covers, and there's a lot of cool covers actually.
Thank you.
We
Yeah, I
have
have them. I'm going to be on another show after yours tonight. There's a crowdfunding comics, I think, by the Pop XP channel. So there's a special deal. If you want, you can kind of show people at the top of the
oh
page.
oh
Um, Kind of like what I did on your show, folks. If you want to get X-Farce, it's $19 and that's shipping included. But the Pop XP show is a 6-pack for $69, but you also get the bonus 7th variant cover as well as stickers and a bonus copy of one of our early parody press books called Heroes. So that's a pretty good deal, and I think I discounted the shipping too. I think instead of $10, I knocked the shipping down to $5. So you can pick up all BREADZZERKER for under $75. And I'm planning on running this through Black Friday weekend.
wow, golly, this is Christmas come early, folks.
Yeah. So BREADZZERKER, we got a lot of cool, guest covers. Rainbow the Brute, that's the first appearance of him in print. I actually have a copy of it if you want to see what it looks like.
Oh, okay, let's do that
right here. So this is drawn by Preston Azevedo with Ethan's blessing, and this is like his very first appearance. And so in BREADZZERKER, he's a rock and roll warrior, and he's got a pet cat. So we thought, well, if we do a cover with Rainbow the Brute on it, how can we make it fair? Because Rainbow the Brute's only like the size of an action figure. So Preston Azevedo, who's a really great painter, he said, I got an idea. I want to make fun of Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer pose where he's on a stallion. So he basically put Rainbow the Brute on top of the cat, like he's defeated BREADZZERKER in battle. And so this cover was one of the best sellers of the campaign.
Wow. First to print on Rainbow the Brute. That's going to be a little bit of like CG lore. That's going to.
I hope so. Yeah, I don't think Ethan. It's been kind of hush hush, and we have a she cover. That's Billy Tucci's character.
Billy Tucci's got that. She's got the she right in there in demand right now. Oh man,
yeah.
The omnibus. Yeah. So now Don knows how to do it. You know how to hook up with people. You know how to network.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I used to go to cons back in the 90s when Billy was there, and there's a lot of people that work for me that got their start with my company, and now they're like too big for their britches. They won't do work for me. They charge too much. Like Lionel Francis Yu, he's the guy that got started with Entity Comics, which was our superhero imprint, and now he's like the big artist for X-Men and Marvel and stuff.
Well,
anyways,
hey, that's all right. Like he can continue to draw X-Men balls and weird universes, and we'll stand. We'll be over here having fun drawing cool, fun books that people want to actually read.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Cool. So yeah, we did BREADZZERKER, and I don't know if I'm going to do a second one. I kind of have a plot in mind, but it's not anything that I have scheduled yet. I'm actually kind of taking some time to write for some other people, and I can't really announce.
Can't reveal it yet.
Not yet, but some pretty high profile creators. So I'm excited. Not like the big two, but we're talking bigger CG oriented titles. So
look for some work from Don Chin coming out in the future.
Yeah, can't keep me down, man. I got too many ideas in my head.
What kind of things like that you want? Like what? I guess you figured out a formula in your earlier days, like when you were like first building a company and stuff, of like parroting things. But like now that it's more, freedom, and you're, doing a selective project, what like inspires you to parody something like?
It kind of has to hit me. It's not like someone can just say, Don, this is hot, parody this. I have to kind of feel inspired to do a parody. So if I was to parody anything now, what would it be? I don't know. I just think the whole woke culture kind of needs to be cleansed, like Boris the Bear cleansed the funny animals. So whether or not I'll come up with some idea. BREADZZERKER actually kind of pokes fun at the whole wokeness of modern music, of the whole coronavirus thing. And we kind of make fun of the murder hornets. And so if when you read it, you'll probably see a lot of social parody in there that I kind of tried to squeeze in. So I kind of got that out of my system. But I just, every time I open Twitter, there's always some story about how Marvel and DC are just changing all the different sexual orientation of
something.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, when these characters were, not to say that there's anything wrong with being gay, but create your own gay heroes and stop messing with.
That's what I'm saying.
Heroes.
Well, that's the point. If you're trying to say that everybody's equal and that if everyone has their own value, then don't leech off the back of other characters. Like literally create a new. Take the time. Be creative. This is the problem. They act like everybody hates this character because it's gay. Nobody hates the character because it's gay. They hate the character because you didn't write anything to make the character lovable. You didn't give them a story arc. You didn't make them face any kind of adversity or anything. They didn't learn some kind. It was just magically they're this thing and they're in a pizza shop and they hate carbon emissions. Like that you just
Exactly.
that's not creative writing. That's not creative writing.
Yeah,
and the artwork's the same way. The Cal Arts kind of thing that's taken over comics. This like weird lazy art, or the movie kind of artwork thing where like they were doing Star Wars with this, like they're just taking movie pictures and they're putting them in, screenshots, and they're putting them into an art program and they're fucking doodling over them, and like that's the human eye can tell something's wrong with that. There's something different when you look at a visceral piece of artwork, when you're looking at something and you see like somebody created something as opposed to someone like layered over something.
Right. I think you're gonna. People are starting to see that when a person does a creator-owned book, they're gonna put a lot more of their energy and creativity versus something that a corporation owns. I mean, even though you're gonna get paid, probably pretty well for doing the books that people know, like Superman or Spider-Man or X-Men, whatever, they're always going to have an audience. But you look at the stuff like Ethan's putting out, and there's a lot of guys that are putting out stuff like Von Sper's doing. Yeah, he's got a really great looking book, and Renzo Rodriguez is a guy that I think people are going to start seeing artwork. But a lot of the books that I enjoy reading that I support are books that I'm drawn to the artwork because they're not lazy. They're people that they're telling a story, and they have passion because they created it, and it comes through that love of putting your own creation out there versus kind of being paid by the man to do basically grunt work. So I think there's going to be quite an exodus of creators, not just people that are CG, but I think people that have worked for the big companies leaving to do their own thing, because the audience. Yeah,
I think they're gonna look at their paychecks and realize like it's just not worth it. like I can spend a year working for Marvel and DC, and I can work on 15 projects and barely make my rent, or I can make 2 projects. I could really hustle, get out there, work my indie market, and like sell a book.
Exactly, man.
And make at least, and you know what? At least if I'm broke at the end of the year or eating like out of tuna cans, like it's my hustle, it's my property. Like it's not, I'm not just slaving away to make someone else millions of dollars on something that I don't even appreciate working on.
Right, man. Yeah, there's a revolution happening, and it's I think the big two are kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
They're getting
Trying to
lazy. Have you seen some of the pages with 30 word bubbles and stuff? Like, you're not Alan Moore. You're not writing anything epic. Like, stop it.
right, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty sad. I don't even, to be honest, I haven't really picked up much from Marvel or DC over the last few years. I mean, I do kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. So I did pick up some of those, but I didn't even read them yet. I've
Mm.
got way too many other books that I got to catch up on.
Well, CG is exciting me because we're getting more and more books in fulfillment. And I also like books like yours where you can get it. The more books that are fulfillable and like you have the on demand store and you can get them, the better because it gets like the property in people's hands. They can get it now. You know, when the whole ball started rolling, it's a snowball and it has to roll into an avalanche of properties. And so people had to wait times and then there was different follies in the beginning. Different things have happened. And so now we're finally, I think, hitting a critical mass point where it's starting to build out where like it really is like you can come into CG as a brand new person and you can get a handful of books in your hands and really like viscerally understand, feel it, and then, you know, get the understanding that some of these books took different amounts of times and like, understand that part of it too. And but still on a regular basis be able to pick up books and while other books are being developed and cooked up.
Yeah, definitely, dude. I totally agree with that. I think it's exciting, man. There's just so many
I
talented
think
people.
CG could get on a quote unquote like monthly basis by the diversity of creators, right? There's so many enough creators existing and that are doing it on a good professional level. I think we'll get to that point that like you can monthly like get your fill. Like you can walk away from the big two. Like here's this creator. Well, I have this guy, and then 3 months later I might get something else from him. Or I mean, it just depends as how the business develops and how people are capable. A lot of creators are working day jobs and investing significant amounts of their own personal money into some
Yeah,
of these projects.
yeah,
But the
yeah.
hype is getting better and getting bigger.
It's hard to do a project if you have a full time day job. Just for me to get out the two that we did this year, I was late a little bit on BREADZZERKER, but um, it it is almost like a full time job because you got to do a lot of the promotion and go on and
To hit all the channels you have to do. No, yeah, and that's important is getting out to the circles. And there is so many channels that people don't know about that are just in the sphere that are kind of growing up. And it's like even if it's a pocket of 5 or 6 people, it's like 5 or 6 people that like you just were not in front of because a lot like unfortunately a lot of people aren't on cons anymore. I would like to see it. I went to my local Comic Con this year and it's the Lilac City Comic Con now. It's the guy that came here and created it. It's only a few years old, so I mean he's building, and he built a second one in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is about 20 minutes away. And but I would like to see more creators. I went there. There was one creator that was interested, and there was only 3 comic book creators, a couple of novelists, and a bunch of people who were just drawing your favorite Spider-Man.
okay.
So I want to see more creators. I want to see more. Like I would love to see CG like take over, like get back, like let's get the circuit. Let's get people excited about books. Because
Yeah,
there
I
was a
think
guy.
you're
There
right,
was
man.
there was a guy from Seattle. He's a creator. He's got a book called Kinetic. He had it in both. You could get it in the collected edition version, or you could get like each individual issue. You get them signed or not signed from him. And it was like like this. There we go. This is like a product. Like this is what I came to Comic Con for, was to find stuff
I
and
was
not
going to
just.
ask you, uh, 24 Eyes, when you lived in California, did you ever go to the San Diego Con?
I got in there once, but I just it's so difficult like to get tickets after that. I got like in because of the Marine Corps.
Yeah, yeah, those are fun. I used to. We hit a lot of those in the '90s when we were publishing full time, and that was just about the time when Hollywood was starting to just kind of overtake it. But it was fun when it was mainly comic book people. But now it's almost more like Hollywood and TV.
Well, this is the thing. I think if you're strategic and it was advertised appropriately and it took a little bit of work of creators wanting to do this, there is enough heat in the in the CG realm that if you were strategic about it, you could have probably 4 or 5 cons that were more CG centric. Open them up to everybody, but you
Right.
could, that people could, if you planned them out, like places like Portland, probably like Dallas, Miami. There's a handful of cities where there'd be enough people, there'd be enough interest that would probably, work out with the financials.
Yeah. I think Ethan's trying to do one next year, maybe in Florida, is kind of what I think I heard, or
hmm
something like that. But it'd be nice to have like a West Coast, East Coast
Well,
type of.
like here in Spokane, I'm 5 hours in all directions from a bunch of major cities. You know what I mean? Like people can come from Bend, Oregon, they can come from Portland, they can come from Seattle, or the same thing as like if you're so like picking a couple of cities like that where people can pour into, or even like Las Vegas because it's cheap to fly in. That would
Right.
be cool. I mean, a lot of people could get into Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well, somebody out there do it. Uh,
I think that's going to be one of the steps. I think that there's I think what's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be some like licensing and negotiation agreements. There needs to be somebody out there because I don't think that the creators have the individual time, and so someone would have to take
be
up
dedicated.
dedicated to selling the properties, and basically you would just have to have a series of license agreements to say like I have their the ability to represent your product, to sell it, to get it
Yeah.
distributed.
That's a good. Yeah, you got a good ideas, dude. Thinking outside the
Well,
box.
it's a veteran thing. It's a pro America thing. I am very much. I want, like, everyone says that there's no American culture, and I call bullshit. I'm like, the whole world follows us. Like, get out of here. You
Right.
forget about it. Like I said, like an example, France doing Wild West. There is no Wild West that exists in France. There is no that is an ideally that is strictly an American thing. That is American iconology. Like there is American things, and we like we're the top of pop culture. It's pretty funny how like a band can burn out in America and not be able to tour very much, but then go to South America and live a second life like they had in their heyday of America and tour all through South America and Europe.
Wow.
Like we lead the way. Like it's and
Yeah.
so like it's obnoxious to me, and like comic books are part of pop culture, and I think that pop culture, like the majority of it, is uniquely American, and I want to preserve that. I
Yeah.
want that to keep going, and I hate it when I hear people say like this is dead. Like it's not dead. It's just not distributed. Like you just gave up. You just stopped working. That's the thing.
Right.
Like people, we let the big two take over and fail, and we didn't, as Americans, like due diligence, like you said, like your book, the hamsters, or like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. These are indie products. Like that was hustle. That was fun. That was there was a product. It was a good product, and it just had to get in front of people. And that's the thing. Like I just people, I think in CG sometimes are a little lazy on marketing and
Yeah.
feeling the hustle. But
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it's dead. It's not dead. It's just you have to get it in front of people. They just have to see it.
Right. Yeah, you're right, man. So.
I mean, like, isn't that's how like the grocery store works? You really they have all those products up front. You're like, I didn't even know I needed this, but you know what? I do need this product.
Awesome, man.
Mm. But you have another show to go to, sir.
Yeah, I do. I've got one starting in about 20 minutes, and I probably need to just take a
We'll
little bit
probably
of a
take a little
break
break and
with it.
relax. Sir, I
But
appreciate it. There is an Outcast Owls special on X-Farce. If you go to IndieGoGo in the links below, you'll you'll hit that promo, $19 for the book with shipping. That is a hell of a discount. Thank you very much, sir. And then you
you're
can
welcome.
also you can hit BREADZZERKER, and we have another promo for another show. But we have another promo. We can get all the covers. And like I said, I had a difficulty picking covers. I'm probably gonna hit this up actually, because there are so many cool covers. You can get the entire pack at a discounted rate and with shipping. This is very generous of Don hitting during the holiday season.
Thanks, man. So I did want to say, besides X-Farce and BREADZZERKER specials, oh, my wife is so sweet bringing me coffee. Thank you, Laura. She's good. Look at this. This is in an X-Farce mug.
Nice.
So anyways, 24. We have a if you don't want to spend, if you don't have $69 to spend on the BREADZZERKER, we actually have a special on the She cover for, I think I have it for $12 with free shipping. So you can pick this up signed. Normally this would be like 25 with shipping, but I think I'm running a special on the same BREADZZERKER page. So if you don't want to spend $70, you can get this for 12.
Well, I think you should do that at the very minimum. Yeah. Thank you, sir. It has been an amazing evening, and I think what we should do, let's see, we should play the X-Farce trailer out, I think.
All right, man. Sounds good.
So share video, share screen, brave tab.
Hey, Chauncey, fat sack.
Yeah, we have interesting colors around here.
My name is Professor Baldy, and I run a school for juvenile delinquents. But not just any delinquents. Mine are specially gifted. You might even call them mutants. Trust a few reformed ex-cons. Tangerine.
Am I the apple of your eye, Bubba?
Jeannie Gray. Beastie Boy. Oh, everybody dance now. Snow Cone.
Is it hot in here, or is it just me?
And their friends from X-Farce. Cable TV.
Eat remote control, frog face.
Garfarel. Meow. Dominoes.
This book has just the right amount of cheese.
And introducing the Newt Mutants. Beware the rest. Magneto. Mistress Piggy. And not at all breaking the fourth wall. Cesspool. Now, Verity Press Comics is back with X-Farce Reloaded #1. Don't miss this extraordinary comics extravaganza with 7 full color stories of marvelous mutant mayhem. Back this book today for awesome variant covers and original artwork tiers. 48 pages of action and hilarious hijinks by some of comics' funniest talents. Verity Press, making the world laugh again. Only on IndieGoGo.